Manipulation surrounds daily life in ways that often go unnoticed. From the subtle phrasing in advertisements to persuasive tactics in personal conversations, manipulative techniques shape decisions, beliefs, and emotions. Most people encounter them regularly without realizing it. They may feel pressured, confused, or unsure after an interaction, yet struggle to identify the cause. This opening section introduces the concept of manipulation as a spectrum, ranging from intentional to unconscious use. It emphasizes that manipulation is not always aggressive or obvious. Instead, it often hides behind politeness, flattery, guilt-tripping, or selective sharing of information. The goal is to create awareness. By understanding these tactics, viewers gain the ability to detect when influence crosses into manipulation. This awareness becomes a tool for maintaining emotional independence and making more informed decisions in all areas of life. Gaslighting is a manipulation tactic that causes a person to question their own memory, perception, and sanity. The manipulator intentionally distorts facts, denies past events, or insists that something did not happen the way the victim remembers. These behaviors may begin with small contradictions or casual dismissals of emotions, but they gradually intensify. The victim starts to feel uncertain, not only about specific incidents, but also about their general ability to recall and interpret experiences accurately. As the manipulation continues, the victim may begin to rely more on the manipulator's version of reality than on their own. This dependency weakens their trust in themselves and increases their vulnerability to further control. The tactic is especially dangerous because it works slowly and invisibly, often masked as concern or logic. In relationships, gaslighting can be used to cover up harmful behavior, justify mistreatment, or avoid accountability. Recognizing the pattern is essential for reclaiming mental clarity and reestablishing personal boundaries. Guilt-tripping is a subtle form of emotional manipulation that uses guilt as a tool to control or influence someone's actions. The manipulator expresses disappointment or dissatisfaction in a way that places emotional weight on the other person. This can include passive-aggressive remarks, exaggerated emotional reactions, or statements that suggest the other person is being inconsiderate or ungrateful. The technique often appears in close relationships where emotional bonds can be exploited to achieve compliance. The manipulator avoids direct confrontation and instead frames the situation so that the target feels responsible for their emotions. As a result, the victim may feel compelled to act against their own interests or values just to ease the guilt. Over time, this behavior can create a cycle where the manipulated person constantly sacrifices their own needs to avoid being seen as selfish. Recognizing guilt-tripping requires awareness of emotional triggers and the ability to separate genuine concern from intentional emotional pressure. The silent treatment is a manipulative tactic that involves intentionally ignoring or refusing to communicate with someone as a means of control. Rather than addressing a conflict or expressing emotions openly, the manipulator chooses withdrawal and silence. This sudden lack of response can cause the other person to feel confused, anxious, or emotionally distressed. The silence creates a power imbalance where the manipulator holds control over when and how communication will resume. This tactic often leads the target to overthink their actions and assume they are at fault, even if they don't understand what caused the silence. In many cases, the victim begins to apologize or make amends simply to restore communication, regardless of whether they did anything wrong. The manipulator uses this reaction to maintain control and avoid accountability. Over time, the silent treatment can erode trust and emotional security, reinforcing a dynamic where the manipulated person fears abandonment or rejection for minor disagreements. Love bombing is a manipulative behavior where the manipulator floods another person with excessive affection, flattery, and attention in a short period of time. The goal is to create an intense emotional connection very quickly, often before the target has had time to assess the situation rationally. It may include constant compliments, grand gestures, frequent messages, and declarations of love or deep connection early in the relationship. This sudden intensity can feel exciting and validating, drawing the target in and making them feel special or chosen. However, this affection is often not genuine. Once the emotional attachment is formed, the manipulator begins to shift their behavior. The overwhelming positivity is gradually replaced with criticism, emotional withdrawal, or inconsistency. The target, now emotionally invested, becomes confused and starts seeking ways to regain the initial affection. This creates a cycle of emotional dependence where the manipulated person feels responsible for maintaining the connection and avoids conflict out of fear of losing the bond. Love bombing is common in toxic romantic and friendship dynamics and is often the first stage of deeper emotional manipulation. Gaslight reinforcement is a continuation of the initial gaslighting phase. Once the manipulator has planted seeds of doubt, they maintain control by repeating subtle phrases that question the victim's emotional responses and memory. Phrases like "you always take things the wrong way" or "you're imagining things" are used repeatedly over time. This consistent undermining reshapes how the target perceives themselves. The victim begins to internalize these messages, believing they're overly emotional, irrational, or forgetful. Over time, they become reliant on the manipulator's version of reality, struggling to trust their own thoughts or feelings. This reinforcement builds a cycle that is difficult to escape without external support or perspective. Shifting the goalposts is a manipulation strategy where the target is constantly made to feel like they're falling short, no matter what they achieve. The manipulator keeps changing expectations or redefining what success or approval looks like. When the target meets one request or standard, another is immediately introduced, often without acknowledgement of the previous effort. This creates a never-ending cycle of trying to please or gain validation. The target is left feeling exhausted, frustrated, and inadequate. They may begin to question their own worth and lose confidence in their ability to meet expectations, even when their efforts are significant and consistent. Projection is a psychological manipulation tactic where the manipulator attributes their own negative behaviors, emotions, or intentions to someone else. Instead of acknowledging their flaws or wrongdoing, they accuse others of the very things they are guilty of. A person who lies may accuse others of dishonesty, or someone who is controlling may claim that others are too demanding. This creates confusion and emotional disorientation in the target, who may begin to doubt their own behavior and question whether the accusation holds truth. Projection allows the manipulator to shift attention away from themselves while placing the target in a defensive position. It keeps the manipulator's image clean while subtly damaging the confidence and credibility of the other person. Triangulation is a strategy used by manipulators to control or destabilize relationships by inserting a third person into the conflict. This third party can be real or imaginary and is used to validate the manipulator's perspective or create emotional tension. For example, the manipulator might say that someone else agrees with them or favors them over the target, triggering feelings of insecurity, jealousy, or self-doubt. This shifts focus away from the manipulator and causes the target to compete for approval or feel excluded. Triangulation disrupts unity and fosters dependence on the manipulator for reassurance. It is particularly effective in social or group settings where alliances and perceptions can easily be influenced. Passive aggression is a form of indirect expression of anger, frustration, or resentment. Instead of openly communicating displeasure, the manipulator expresses negative feelings through subtle behaviors and remarks that are often difficult to confront directly. Common signs include sarcasm that feels like a disguised insult, backhanded compliments that undermine confidence, or intentional procrastination and stubbornness to frustrate others. This approach allows the manipulator to avoid open conflict while still exerting emotional control over the target. The subtlety of passive-aggressive behavior creates confusion and tension, leaving the victim uncertain about the true feelings and intentions behind the actions. This ambiguity often forces the target to second-guess themselves and expend energy trying to interpret or fix the situation. Playing the victim is a manipulative tactic where the person exaggerates or fabricates hardships, suffering, or unfair treatment in order to avoid responsibility and gain sympathy from others. The manipulator positions themselves as helpless, oppressed, or unfairly targeted, creating an emotional narrative that demands attention and support. By doing this, they shift focus away from their own mistakes or harmful behavior and place others in the role of either rescuer or aggressor, regardless of the reality of the situation. This tactic can distort interactions, making it difficult for healthy communication to take place. It often leads to a cycle where the manipulated feel guilty, confused, or obligated to accommodate the supposed victim, which undermines genuine empathy and honest relationships. Manipulation techniques often operate quietly beneath the surface, making them difficult to detect at first. Despite their subtlety, they have a powerful impact on how people interact and relate to one another. By learning to recognize these behaviors, individuals gain the ability to set clear boundaries that protect their emotional well-being. This awareness helps in asking important questions about relationships and situations, leading to healthier dynamics and better decision-making. Understanding manipulation goes beyond identifying it in others. It also involves reflecting on one's own behavior and patterns, recognizing where manipulation might unconsciously be used or tolerated. This self-awareness is essential for personal growth and the development of genuine, respectful relationships. Recognizing these tactics is not a cause for guilt or shame, but rather an opportunity to learn, change, and foster stronger emotional resilience. Embracing this knowledge empowers individuals to take control of their interactions and create more positive connections.